All right, so I'd like to introduce Lennar Cantor, president of Growth Warrior. She will speak to us on the keys to effective leadership. Lennar, it's all yours. Take it away.
Well, thank you. I am gonna, hi everyone. It's so great to see you. And thanks so much for that presentation. I did some work in the analytics space a while back, and it's really great to see how quickly it's evolving and how powerful it can be with the right tools. So I appreciate that. And thank you to FocusKPI for inviting me to participate today. Okay, I am going to put this big screen. So I wanted to just share with everyone a little bit about, as you grow in your career and you look to do different things, leadership is so important. And particularly now with organizations, being flatter, having to do more with less, working remotely, I think analytics and the power that the tools, I'm assuming many of the folks on the call are developing, can really make a huge difference in helping people to be, helping businesses to be more effective. So what I'm going to do today is just give you a little bit of an overview. I'll share a little bit about my background. I want to hear who's on the call and what your experience is so that we can talk about any specific challenges you have. I'm going to go over 5 keys to leadership. And then if you have more questions, we can talk about those. And then I'm happy to sort of wrap up and give you a special offer that I have. So I want to talk about the 5 keys to leadership because what I'm hoping is that you'll walk away with some inspiration, motivation, and new insights. Sometimes it's just great to get an outside perspective to start thinking about things in a different way. So hopefully I'll raise some ideas for you to be considering as you evaluate your career and your leadership. So folks could just include in the chat just a little overview of maybe what roles you're in. You could talk about the industry you're in or what leadership means to you. And while you guys are doing that, I think I will give you a little bit of my background so I can see where everyone is coming from. But I am a business growth and leadership coach. I have worked in the financial technology space for 20 years, and for the last almost 7 years, I've had my own business where I work with companies as an outsourced growth consultant and chief marketing officer. And then I work with individuals as a leadership coach. So some of my clients include startup founders, business owners, leadership teams, and business professionals at every stage of their growth. And I really help people to get clarity on what it is they want to create if they're trying to get to the next level or scale their business. A lot of folks now in the current environment are looking to change what they're doing. Either they're not happy where they are, or circumstances have caused them to have to rethink what they're doing, either where they work physically or how they work or the industries that they're in. There's just been so much change right now. And I help people to start things that are new. So I've launched over 100 products and services. I've worked in a lot of areas of change, so mergers and acquisitions, helping to take companies public. I'm not seeing the chat, so if anyone wanted to put in a little bit of background, I mean, is everyone in business analytics or are there different roles? Perfect. What leadership means to me. Thank you for adding those. Great. And then I just also wanted to share, I've worked as a startup advisor, mentor, and judge in venture competitions. So I've worked with a bunch of different accelerator programs. So there's leadership is being defined as the drive for seamless and positive teamwork. I love that. You're in business analytics, Anamish, and you're looking for a new opportunity. Great. Leadership's learning from and supporting the team while executing on the business priorities. Great. Freelance content strategy. Perfect. Awesome. So it looks like we actually have people from a few different backgrounds. So if everyone else who's joining wants to jump in, I would love to hear what you're looking to do. And if you have any specific questions, we can get into that. But one of the things that I think is really important, and I'm seeing come up as a theme now more than ever, is how can you be the driver of your own career? So how can you achieve growth on your own terms? Because sometimes when we work for a company, we have to stay within the constructs that they have. But with all the change that's happening, how can you lead your own career? So here are some ideas. So what I'm sharing here is a framework that I use to help people and organizations think about their growth. So I think there's an inner element which starts with your passion and purpose, like what is it that you're here to do? Then another inner element is how do you communicate it? So that's getting across your why as well. On the outer side, there is a creative element, like what are you building? What is the product? What is the technology? What are you bringing to market? And then there's a growth element, which is how do you make it happen? What are the processes that you have in place? And then sitting between the internal and the external is the interpersonal. How do we relate to each other and build relationships? And I'm so glad to see that teamwork was what many of you defined as an important element of leadership. So, so I'm going to get into these a little bit more, but applying that framework, I think 5 things for you to be thinking about when you look at your career and you look at how you show up in your work and in your life. It's important to know yourself. So what is it that you care about? And I think this is particularly important for folks in technology, as with any other career, but are there things that really matter to you? Is it quality? Is it the technology itself? Is it innovation? Is it solving problems, serving customers, helping to make the world a better place? I mean, I think data and analytics is such a complicated space, and it raises so many questions around data privacy and integrity and things like that. So the more clear you are about what matters to you, then you can bring that into the work that you're doing with folks and the organizations that you work with, and knowing what they care about can help you to make sure you're in alignment with who you're working with. The second element that I think is often overlooked, particularly with folks who work in technical fields, is communication. How do you clearly convey what is most important for people to know, and to do it in a way that helps them to understand? So on the one hand, an image and a graphic and a chart is worth 1,000 words. That may be true, but at the same time, we need people to understand, why are we presenting it this way? What was, the context? Why is it laid out like this? And being able to understand those things is so critical. And I think that it's often an underlooked characteristic for folks who focus on coding and elements of technology. They don't always appreciate how important it is to convey what they're doing. And I think we sometimes overlook, when we're focused on the outputs, that helping people to really translate and understand them is so critical. In terms of opportunities, right now, I think the most important thing for all of us is to really understand, how do we add value? And what does that mean for the business we work in, for the clients we're working with? I think one of the nice things about, and I'm sure we could talk about it more, that business intelligence dashboard for hiring was, okay, how is that helping the organization bring in more talent, find the right people, really understanding what you're doing and how it contributes to the larger business objectives. The reason it's important to understand this is for yourself to make sure you're on the right track and focused on the right priorities. And then as you look outside your existing organization and you're looking to grow professionally, you need to be able to communicate your value to prospective employers and people that you work with and for, so they understand what you bring to the table and why they might want to work with you over someone else, right? Because all the artificial intelligence search algorithms can look on, your resume, but what I have found is a resume is not a person, and you really need to be able to hear that individual articulate what they need. And I have a funny story here. I hired this intern, so a lot of what I do is around marketing strategy, and this guy literally had the most amazing resume I'd ever seen. It had like a cool graphic of him, and it was laid out very visually appealing. And I assumed wrongly that that was his skill set and he was going to be able to help my organization because his resume looked so great. I later found out he had none of those skills. Someone else had designed the resume for him. And that was my bad for not validating that his expertise was really in a completely different area. So this leads to my next point, which is your strengths and knowing what you're good at. I think it's so important that we are clear on where we excel, because the truth is a lot of us have certain talents that come to us very naturally, and often we actually underestimate the things that we're really good at because they're easy for us. So I think it's important to know, what is it that you're really great at? And if you're not sure, maybe ask your friends, your family, people you've worked with, like, what is it that I do that makes me really good? And you might actually be surprised. It may not always be what you think it is, but the more you know what it is you're really good at, you can find the opportunities to leverage those skills. What I see happen is sometimes people think they should be good at certain things, and they try and convince themselves, that's what I want, that's what I should do. So this happens a lot for organizations, or this happens, for like growing managers. They feel like, oh, I want to manage a team, I have to lead people, I have to get to the next level. And some people aren't really great at managing other people. And that's something that's actually really important to know. Like, do you want to lead and work with people, or do you want to work independently? Are you a thinker? Are you, if you're good at analytics and coding, like maybe that's where you should spend your energy. And I want to say this, it's not that we can't develop skills that don't come naturally to us. We all can cultivate additional skills that help us grow. However, we are going to have the most success when we focus on like our secret sauce. Why? Because that's what comes naturally to us. And I do want to say that sometimes there are people that really enjoy the challenge of learning and growing in areas that they may not be good at. And if that's something that you want for yourself, go for that. That's great. I would say then your strength is your curiosity and your desire to learn more. Thank you for sharing this, Helenda, that it's difficult for clients to explain their company value, and it's about communicating their worth. I think you are spot on. So many of us, and I will actually say this for myself included, it's really great. I work with people and I can help you sell yourself, but selling myself, that was a skill that I needed to learn. So it doesn't come naturally to us. And I also want to say that for many of us culturally, we may come from societies where it's actually looked down upon to talk about what we're good at. So if we come from collectivist cultures where it's really common to, be part of the community, and it's not rewarded to stand out or differentiate yourself it can actually be very uncomfortable in, you know, let's say in the US environment to sort of stick your neck out or talk about yourself. So just being aware of the dynamics of where you're working can be really important. And then on my final comment here, interpersonally, we need to build relationships. Why? Because none of us is an island. We need to really know who we're working with, who we're working for. And I think relationships and understanding client service, it's sort of like in and across the organization and outside the organization. So as you look to grow, you want to know your peers, you want to have good rapport with your managers and maybe even, you know, the senior leadership team to the extent that you have access to them and you can build those relationships. You might want to know other folks in related industries or companies who you can learn from or build rapport with. I want to say I have always been really impressed with wikis and the way technology organizations and technologists do this open sourcing and sharing of information. Like, that is powerful to know where you can find things and how you can build relationships. So these are 5 skills that I think can help you be more successful and effective in your career. And here's a little more information and background. So I think that values are particularly critical because they help us to make the right decisions. When we know what we care about, we can use that as a framework for the choices that we make. When we have a clear vision and what it is that we want, either for our own professional growth or our family or understanding where the business is trying to get to, then we can share with other people, oh, well, we're trying to achieve this outcome. In order for that to happen, we need to do this, 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 and this. So it helps people understand the path forward to success. I also think that when we're looking for opportunities, it helps us to really find new possibilities, because I don't believe there's only one way to achieve things. And maybe you guys will tell me otherwise if you're coding, but I have to imagine that if you had 3 or 5 different people, they might approach a given challenge from a different perspective, or they might bring a unique way of looking at things, because even though many of us may have similar capabilities, we're each unique. I believe our strengths are what help us to be more successful, and the more connection and relationships we have, the better we can collaborate, and I think we can also learn from other people as well. So I thought I would give you some examples. So good leaders, I believe, would share progress updates and identify challenges. So let's say you're working on a project and you realize there's some problem with the data. You might want to let people know, gee, I'm uncovering something that's not like making sense, and looking to engage and get feedback, or, you know, share that information. I think an example of, you know, poor leadership might be someone's trying to give me feedback, but they're not listening, or, you know, you're sort of not engaging with other people. If you were working on a project that maybe wasn't going to hit its deadline because there were some issues coming up, you might want to highlight that and say, hey, we're supposed to achieve this, but there are these things that keep coming up. I mean, obviously, you would want to identify solutions, but I think if you were just following directions without really understanding the goals of the project, you might deliver an outcome that's really different. So back in the day, I actually, as a product manager, I designed some technology platforms. So I was sitting in between the business and the technology team, And I remember I built up a spec and I handed it off to the tech guys, and I had used a company acronym. And when they coded it, they coded the acronym, not spelling out the full company name as I had expected them to. And so we uncovered that as we were getting ready to test. So it was a really important lesson for me to learn, and also to realize, you know, you sort of need to have this open communication with the team so that everyone's on the same page and people are speaking the same language. So I think we all benefit by cultivating relationships in our network. It can be with peers, it can be with colleagues. If we go to work and we're sort of in our little box and we're not really using the opportunity to understand what other people are doing, we're missing out on the bigger picture and really seeing how everything fits together. And here are some examples from the outer perspective. So for those of you who really are energized and wanting to grow professionally, finding opportunities and sharing them with managers and leaders is a great way to be identified as someone who is looking for growth. If you're working on a project and you are not sharing information, or you're only focused on what you're doing, I get it. Like, sometimes that's what we're told to do, is to just kind of keep our heads down. But sometimes we can miss the bigger picture. And I think obviously a lot of this is a function of the role you're in, who you're working for, the company culture. But this is where it comes back to, what is it that you want to create for yourself? I also think there's an opportunity that as you build your experience and you can learn more things, that will help you. When you focus on the areas that you're not good at, or someone gives you feedback and you blame other people or you make excuses, that's not taking responsibility, and that won't help you to grow in your career. So just to wrap up, I think focusing on your strengths, knowing what you value, communicating what you're doing, what you need, what you're noticing can be really helpful. Demonstrating how you add value in your contributions and building relationships can really help you to grow professionally. As I said, I work with leaders on their growth and development. I would love to support anyone who's looking to get to the next level. And I just wanted to see if anyone had any specific questions. I'm happy to answer them, either about leadership or professional growth.
Thank you, Lenore. That was just fantastic. I saw a lot of my own personal growth and ways that I've been trying to, you know, grow my career with your slides. So
I just want to say, for the record, all of us have our strengths and our areas we can grow. And I think as with everything, it's like an ongoing process. And I do think that sometimes the organization that we're in can impact and influence how we show up. Because I've seen people in certain environments who are really not themselves and can't really bring their true skills and talents because of the environment that they're in. So, you know, if you're not in the right place, let's have a conversation, because it's much better to be in a place that actually supports you and where you can do great work, because you're going to be a lot happier if you're there. And I would also say, don't let the pandemic hold you back, because organizations are hiring, particularly for those of you who are technical. So any advice on upward management? Peter, are you asking about how do you get to become a manager? And I'll speak to that, but if you want more specific things, or if I didn't understand your question. So I think if you envision yourself and want to be a manager, then you want to seize on any opportunity to manage other people. And let's say you're in a position where maybe you're an independent performer. That's okay. You can work in projects with other people, or take a lead in areas where you build relationships with other people and you demonstrate your ability to take on more complex projects. So again, managers, and I believe this is happening more and more in technical organizations, there are often different tracks. There's the management track where you're guiding people, and then there's the technical track where you're using your expertise to lead initiatives that are based on your technical chops. And I think it can be really helpful to know which of those areas you want to go in. So if you really want to manage and lead teams, then you need to be investing in those people skills, the interpersonal skills, the ability to communicate and inspire others and give feedback and to build collaboration. Those are the skills that are going to help you lead a team. And ideally, those are the people that management will recognize, oh, this person is really good at working with other colleagues. So if you don't manage anyone right now, but you want to, see if you can get on cross-functional teams, or if you're, let's say, a business analyst and you're working with a client or someone in another organization, build those relationships, and maybe you could transition from being, in a pure technology role to a role that interfaces more with clients. I think there are opportunities there. I mean, one of the fastest ways to management and leadership is sort of following the money. So if you're doing something that gets you closer to increasing revenues for your organization, that is also going to be a good way to move in that direction. So I hope that gives you a few ideas of where you might want to, think about putting your energy. I hope that was helpful for you.
Okay, and of course, as you're pointing out, the first thing to do is to understand like how we come across, who we are, what do we want, be honest with our own performance and look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you can't make those changes, and you're not open to making those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is value in humility. And listen, the truth is sometimes people don't give us feedback in a way that we like. Like sometimes it's not great. But if we can take the value from what people say and really look at where are the opportunities for us to grow, and if we don't take it personally, like in other words, we all can do better in so many things. When I started my own business, like I'm not a technologist. That's an area I just don't have a lot of, that's not my training. So when we find areas that we need support, it can be really helpful to go to other people who can help us with that. That's why, working with a coach can be like so valuable, or having a mentor, or, building relationships with other people who may have the skills or expertise that you want to grow into. So those are just a few ideas.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming. We have on Tuesdays our Analytics at Work, which is the more technical portion to the forum. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Lynn or Carol. And thank you all for coming, and have a wonderful weekend.